of our Q&A session now, and I have two filmmakers here today, so one who's local and one that's from overseas. And if you guys just introduce yourselves to the audience and tell us which films that you have directed, and go from there.
Hi everyone, my name's Angelina Phoenix. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Tampa, Florida in the United States, and my film tonight was Inside.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. My film was ARTIS. I'm not going to reveal my age. I'm just old.
I guess what I'd like to ask first is, before we actually talk about tonight's selection, because neither one of you actually knew what was going to be in the program, what actually got you started in filmmaking? So, Angelina, do you want to tell us, because you're quite new to the field, so what drew you to filmmaking?
So, earlier this year, I was privileged to be allowed to join the course led by Jonathan Jackson, the actor. He's been in General Hospital, Nashville, and he recently did the St. Joseph the Hezekiah film that was filmed at Mount Athos. So his program took place in Nashville, Tennessee, so I got to be in that program and live there for 4 months, and he taught us the art of poetic filmmaking, along with 2 quotes that we aim to live by. One was, "Beauty will save the world," and the other one was, "In order to become a Christian, you must first become a poet." So that was my experience in the filmmaking industry thus far, and I made this film back in June, so it's all been very recent, trying to keep with that poetic mindset of truth and beauty. So.
Fantastic. Jeremy?
I'm not sure. I think I always was attracted to storytelling with pictures. And I think there's so much you can tell within one frame, and then if you combine that with movement and sound, maybe someone talking, you can speak feelings, if that makes sense. And so I'm really into that.
And whilst this the last to speak, what were you trying to say with your film, with Artemis? What were you trying to tell the audience?
So with Artemis, she's a character. She's such a great character. She's very genuine, and she's really funny. And she's always been funny. Like, she told me all jokes when I was a kid, and all the dirty words as well. Sorry. But even though she's not there, it's only like 20% of her there. That 20% is still like very funny. Like, as soon as you open the door and go close to her and say, "Hey, how are you?" she'll be like, "Ah, yes, I'm here, and this is happening." Like, all drama, but in a very, very funny way. And these people went through a lot, like migrating to a new country from the villages and all that. But still, they always have this optimistic view in life, and that's something I wanted to tell with this short doco.
Well, I have to say both films are very deep, and I would say touch soul. They're stories which can sometimes be uncomfortable, but that's why I have to ask you, Angelina, your film Inside, what were you trying to tell us? And I guess what was your intention to tell such a, what is for some people, unfortunately, a terrible life to live?
I guess for me, the loss of innocence is becoming more and more prevalent in our society, especially with the use of social media and predators on the internet and all of that. And I was inspired back during COVID. I received my certificate in cybercrime investigation. So throughout those courses, we learned just how dangerous our world and cyber world really is. So I started doing further research into the whole loss of innocence and what young adults and children are being shown on the web and everything like that. And I really want to start speaking up against, the world of this cyber predators and everything like that, because it seems to be a taboo topic in our society. So I feel like poetic films can touch places that normal words or just public service announcements can't. we must teach our children and our young adults and inspire change from within and not just preach to them all the time. So.
Well, I think that's actually very strong what you just said, because it's through media and art that we can tell these stories, and rather than just bang people over the heads, like this is wrong, this is right, that sort of thing. That's what really touched me, was that the character, who has no name in the film, what really touched me after watching this probably, I think it's the third or fourth time now, but the first time on the big screen, is that alright, she may have now taken a path which is destructive. However, what I really loved about the film was the fact there's a sense of hope, because when we see the little girl, which is herself, to me that tells me that there is hope that she can, right now she is this particular type of woman, but she also has the potential to be her old self as well. That it's not the end, it's just hard to do. And I think that's relevant to all of us. We all have different struggles, but we can, through I guess hard work and sacrifice and patience, I guess redeem ourselves. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say that with all of us, we all have that childhood innocence, that spirit that in Orthodoxy we aim to hang on to and carry with throughout our lives. So I feel like the more that we're in touch with that, and the world tries to kill our childhood spirit, let's be clear about that. So the more we're in tune with our childhood self and our true form, the more we can fight against what the world tries to pull over our eyes.
And I guess I have to ask you, Jeremy, dementia is something which it touches many people. I would say perhaps most people in this room have a relative who is suffering from that condition. Since making the film, do you think that it's made it easier for you to deal with your Ya's condition, or how do you reflect on it?
Ooh, it's a tough one. I think the way, someone who hasn't got dementia sees someone who has, it's like, can be very frustrating. Like, you're angry because you can't understand what they want to say. And I've got, like, you only saw like 7 minutes of it. I've got these recordings, these phone calls, maybe hours of it. And you realize at one point that it's not them, it's how you deal with yourself, knowing that the other person is suffering. So I don't know if that answers that question.
But no, so you've given a very personal answer, which is what I was after. So, but I guess what I'd like to know is what you've now seen. Both of you've now seen all 8 films. What are some of your thoughts on what you've seen? Anything in particular that really struck a nerve, or maybe a particular style that you admire? What are your thoughts on tonight's movies?
I really like the poetry and how there was dialogue missing in many, and how connected they were with nature.
No, actually, that's I didn't realise it, but you're right. There is almost a third to a half the films actually do refer to poetry, and you can actually, I guess, talk about that, because she's also written a book, and so you're quite a master with words. What are your thoughts on the poetry? And actually, sorry to interrupt, but that's another thing I like to mention. I've noticed with Orthodox cinema over the years is that it's not just like one technique. Not one technique is used. It uses, whether it's through colour, whether it's through sound, whether it's through words. In this case, with poetry. And also the overlay with nature, including like the tree crown. It's a 15-minute documentary just looking at the seasons and decay, but also life, death, and reflecting on the lives of people who we'll never meet, but we get a bit of an idea. So I guess, what are your thoughts on the poetry of tonight?
So in the Orthodox realm, we know of Christ's teachings, and he teaches in parables. And I feel like parables are a form of poetry. So the book that I was working on, and it'll probably be out in a couple months, is along the same lines as the short film that you just watched. It's all about the loss of innocence, and it shows it from a 15-year-old girl's perspective as she her downfall into the real world. So I feel that poetry counteracts a lot of all of the grotesque things in our normal lives. The world wants to just spoon feed us all of the answers and everything has to be instant. But as far as poetry, it causes our minds to think and interpret, and it really, I believe, is the truest form of how we should live our lives and communicate. Like, it doesn't even have to be words, it can be a look, it can be a picture. All of these things not only speak to our bodies, but also to our souls, and I feel like that is the main way that Christ touches us and how we can also show it through an Orthodox lens.
And do you have a favourite film that you saw, besides your own, but was there a film in particular tonight that really touched you? Or even just, or maybe even just from an artistic perspective?
They were all just amazing. Seeing Orthodox films on the big screen is simply incredible. I would say especially your dementia one, because it was speaking to the truth of our society that also may be overlooked, because I feel like a lot of people, they see people suffering from dementia and they simply want to push them to the side or ignore them. So I thought that was great how you put a more humorous lens on it so that it was more relatable. And I also really liked the very first film. I forgot the name of it, but
Man from the Land of Dust?
yeah, Man from the Land of Dust. All of the music and the poetry within it to tell a saint story I thought was incredible, and I've never seen anything like that. So.
Just at Byzanfest. And Jeremy, do you have a favourite or a film that inspired you?
For different reasons, like I really like the production design on the first one, which was like a hybrid of like music video and film and narrative.
Well, actually, just a little bit of I'll let you continue, but just a background about that particular, I guess you could say, music clip. It's actually a condensed version of a feature film that should hopefully be ready next year. But to sort of get the word out there and to, I guess, get a taste of what the movie's going to be like, they made it into a video, music clip. So, yes, I continue.
I think they were all different. I like the wolf one, the animation one. That really stood out to me. Like all the movement was great, and the transitions were really good.
I have to say about the wolf one, after seeing seeing it on a small screen, whether it's a laptop or my TV at home, but seeing it on the big screen, I have to say what I really liked about the lupus one is it's just great to see a film, an Orthodox film, which talks about animal cruelty, but it's not just cruelty of animals, it's also our capacity for cruelty. And the fact that you have the wolf, it wants to be like a dog, and dogs which are loyal and quite, not all, but quite, many of them are quite pure of heart, and that's why they make such great companions, and all the saints speak of them, how badly we can treat them. And I feel like the film is also a reflection of not only freedom and desire, but it's also a reflection of ourselves, how we need to always keep our behaviour in check. So for me, it's a great film of self-reflection. What are your thoughts on that, on the film Wolf?
I liked how it was open for interpretation and how, it had that repetition of the story, and every time it caught me by surprise. Okay, now this wolf, what does he want to do? And I felt that there is not a particular wolf. We all, wolves and dogs, want to be something different and do this character check all the time.
Like good and evil, right and wrong.
Yeah.
I like that interpretation. And yourself, Angelina?
I guess for me, I looked at it like through an Orthodox lens, how it kind of reflects all of us as Orthodox Christians. We are called into a life of suffering and glory in that manner. So we all could be wolves wishing to live a normal life of ignorance or something like that, but we're called to a higher purpose and a different way of life. So that's my thought.
And I guess in terms of future projects, what's both of you working on? Do you have short, documentary features, things we should maybe keep our eyes open for Byzanfest 2024? You always go first. You both seem quite interested. Answer that question.
I guess for me, I've been mostly working on my book and everything like that. I recently submitted it to a publishing company, and it's been accepted, and it should be ready within the next 2 months. The title of the book is Fallen Angel, and you can reach me on my social media, which will be posted there.
Well, and we can also make it a little bit easier too. Byzanfest is happy to share once it's available, so that everyone who's here, and hopefully you all follow Byzanfest, so we can know exactly when it hits press or hits the iPad, depending how you want to consume your books. And Jeremy, do you have something? Or you can't
a
make
few
it because of
projects
press?
that I've completed after Artemis, and some projects that I'm working on now. I've completed a short documentary on the Polytechnic riots that happened 50 years ago, and hopefully I'm making that into a feature, like an hour length.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that will be ready like next year sometime.
And how do you both feel about, well, I guess Jeremy, you've been making films a little bit longer, but how do you feel about the whole film festival circuit? Is it something which you look forward to, or does it crush your soul?
Well, I've realized that, you know, like a film like Artemis, if it was submitted to Cannes, it wouldn't make it probably. You know, so you realize that there is a specific market and a specific product. So the better you know your product and the market, you get more chances to see it on the big screen. So I think it's like everything. Like if you're selling, I don't know, seafood to people that don't eat seafood, you're probably gonna starve to death. So you probably have to start looking for different markets or a different product.
And actually, an interesting question I should have maybe asked at the beginning, but I figured you can actually tie this Q&A quite well. What are some of your favourite films? So, Angelina, what's some films which have been very inspiring?
For me, we watched a ton of short films in film school, or not short film, full-length films in film school, and I really like Andrei Tarkovsky films, all that poetic cinema, and Terrence Malick films, Mel Gibson, Braveheart, and everything like that. I like Alan Moore's work with V for Vendetta, and really psychological movies that make you think, or poetic films that have you interpret your own meanings within.
And Jeremy, what films have you look up to?
Well, I really like this Russian filmmaker. His name is, can't pronounce it right to be honest, it's Andrei Zvazhishchev, if I'm not mistaken. He made that Loveless film, that was his latest film. And he's got this really weird look of the modern human. And because Russians are Orthodox as well, I don't know, I can understand the characters better than other religions, I guess, other cultures. And you know, he sees into the human soul with like a really, really fine microscope, and you can understand the behavior and how the behavior is driven and what's coming next, and the struggle of that modern human living in such a society. So I really enjoy his films, and I really like slow cinema as well, like Tarkovsky. Like he's a master. Right?
And have either one of you got a film that you really want to check out at the cinemas? Or that's a bit of a hard one to ask. I guess I answer because mainstream cinema. There's well, for me, it's hard to find anything that's worth paying to go watch. But is there anything that you're currently watching or would really like to get your hands on? You're just waiting for to be released that might not be a mainstream film, but it's a film which you know.
I can't wait for Poor Things, Lanthimos. I want to watch Napoleon as well. It's going to be like a classic epic.
Well, I think I'm also waiting for that too, and it looks based on the trailer and just things like he's been at it for a long time. I have to say. Speaking of Phoenixes, anything you're hanging out for?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Napoleon film as well, and for me, I've mostly been diving back into the old school cinema, like the black and white films and things of that nature. Things that don't have a lot of CGI, silent films. We watched a really cool Joan of Arc silent film in film school, and it was very emotional, so I'm trying to find more of that material to get inspired from.
That's fantastic. Does anybody have any questions I'd like to ask, or maybe they have something they have to say about one of the films they saw tonight, or maybe another Byzanfest film they saw during the last few days? No? Well, the problem is we could talk here all night, and I'm just a bit cautious of what the time is. Does anybody have a time, actually? 8:15. Oh, okay, no, we can keep going. I'm having too much fun. Yeah.
Time turns out.
But I guess it depends how the audience feels about it. But I just feel like for myself, I got into, I wanted to be a filmmaker at one point when I was young and naive, but I realised that it's extremely hard and very heartbreaking. How do you, I don't know, not go lose it, or how do you manage to be a filmmaker? So I think that's one of the hardest things you could possibly do, besides brain surgery. It was there first.
I think it's mostly the drive and the message that the filmmaker is trying to share with the audience. That's what really fuels me with my projects, because I know that there's a large group of people out there suffering and that need a light in the darkness. So as long as you keep on putting fuel on that fire, you know, change will happen. So that's what kind of fuels me through my projects.
I don't know if it's hard. I found it easy. Like I can stay do editing for hours. Like I'll lose myself in there. Or I can be very excited when it's about to shoot something or put together a project. It's quite expensive as well. So I don't find it hard. I know it's very fragile. It's like your little kid that at any moment can fall down and you'll have to run to the doctors. So it's very fragile. But I think it has its beauty, even that stress when you're like that anxiety, that creative anxiety. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's something like hard. I find it beautiful, I would say.
Would you also say that whether you have 1,000 people or 2 people in watching the film with you, for me, what I always enjoy is just hearing people gasp or laugh or maybe recoil back. But would you say just the fact that through your art you're able to make somebody feel something the way that you were intending to, would you say that's also a driving factor? Or was it money and fame?
No, it's definitely not money and fame. But when you can sense someone's reaction over something you made, it's the best. Especially if it's the reaction you wanted.
And when it's not?
When it's not, I think you know it somewhere deep inside you. Like it's not going to be the reaction you wanted, and it's life goes on, I guess. To the next one.
And I guess for me, especially with my book, I sent it to a bunch of my friends and family to read and give me some feedback on it before I submitted it to the publishing company. And I asked them what they thought of it once they were finished, and they were like, I didn't like it. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, was it bad? They're like, the story feels too real, and it's not something, that you feel happy about when you finish reading it. And I'm like, good, because that means that I've portrayed truth properly, because if you were just like, oh, that was nice, and you put it back on the shelf, then it isn't as heavy on your soul and something that sticks with you. So I guess the reaction and the contemplation that people get from those types of works is also what fuels me. So.
And I guess my final question, as a filmmaker, or as filmmakers, both, what would you say you would like more of to, in some small way, make your lives a bit easier? Is it just people not taking a film and putting it up on YouTube, or Is it just having the chance at a festival or to screen your film? Like, what do you think will make your lives easier besides money?
That's money. Thanks for taking that away.
I'm trying to get somewhere here. You know, that's the easy answer, more money. But we don't have a genie. So, but besides money,
I think finding the right people, finding people that they have they share the same passion as you. Like, because I directed that project, but for another project I did production design. I was holding the boom, but I was there. I was working on the film, so that was exciting. And then you meet in your filmmaking journey people that are excited 10%, and then they get 90%, and they get 5%, and they find a different job because they have to make a living. So I think when you build a team that everyone's is sharing the same passion, that will make your life very easier. So not just money.
Yeah, I agree with the whole finding a team thing because as far as this one, the film that I just did, I was kind of like a one-man show almost.
One-woman show.
Yeah, one-woman show. So having a team to bounce ideas off of and give different angles onto the same projects, they might come up with something that you haven't thought of before, and so that you're not just sitting going crazy in your room alone editing late at night. So finding a team, and then also more studios in order to shoot these films, because where I am in Tampa, Florida, there's not a very big film community. So movie studios that would give access or aren't just mainstream things that are going into the theaters, but are more independent leaning. So those two things.
Well, thank you both so much for coming up and sharing your love, your passion, your art, most importantly, and hopefully as audience members, you've gained a greater appreciation for not just Orthodox cinema, but just cinema in general. Since I was a little boy, movies have always meant a lot to me, and as I've gone through my journey in life, I found a niche, like we all do with filmmaking, that I feel that I need to tell, and that is through Orthodox creativity. And as you've seen in the films, doesn't mean that it always has an Orthodox, a direct Orthodox message. We just say it's done in an Orthodox manner, but I'm just so pleased that so many of you came and filled up the cinema, and it just gives this festival more merit for next year and to be bigger and better. So thank you. And now we'll be doing the award ceremony in about a moment. So
Thank you.
thank you both.